Hello and welcome to it. My name is Bungseni. This is your favorite show, TED. This is a great edition where we dive in deeper conversations about education, seeking to answer the big question, why education? On today's show, it's no different. We're having a conversation with Itumeleng Mohanoe, who is an amazing Male and Guardian 200 Young South Africans 2021 winner and also a head coach in debate. He's an academic. He's done so much in the media and academic space. So sit back and relax as we get to it. Itumeleng, welcome to TED.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm also good. You're an amazing speaker, a public speaker, a coach who has won so many debates in his entire life. So basically, you can just argue with anyone.
You could say that, yeah. You could say that.
What makes you you?
I think the lack of pretense. I think I'm able to absorb into myself very much, and I think I am very self-aware about a lot of things. I think I was aware of who I am at a very, very young age. And I think what makes me special more than anything is the ability to not be apologetic about the kind of person that I am and what I do and the types of people that I would like to develop. That's just what makes me me, yeah.
Have you always thought you would be where you are today, looking back from where you started? And I mean, on this show, we focus on your academic journey. As a student, in primary school, did you ever see yourself doing the things that you're doing now and even getting to the level that you got into? A practical example is you were a headmaster, a deputy headmaster at the age of 23.
Look, I mean, I think every journey is very different, and one thing about me is that I'm a very, very least expectant person. So I don't live by expectations and I don't predict expectations much because I think it somehow tends to mess up with your own sense of self as well as mental health. So definitely not. And I think it's a get by and go by type of situation.
Has anyone, contributed in guiding you to your self-awareness?
Largely, I think a lot. The first was my grandmother, of course, from a very young age, and then my grandfather, my mom, particularly, a couple of teachers from school. Yeah, so I think it's just like a variance of people. Yeah.
Tell us about your upbringing. You grew up in different countries, and South Africa is not the only country you've been and stayed at. How has that been for you, and how did it contribute to the knowledge, the vast knowledge that you have and experience that you have about life?
Look, to be honest with you, I think once I became very self-aware, this is the only country that I literally then, I remember staying in and I remember being a part of, and I remember being in and schooling and so on. I think early years and I think all the other years and also traveling and going to different countries at different states has been quite a marvelous journey, but I think the bigger part of the contribution of my life has just been here in Mzansi. Yeah.
For someone who's never been in other countries, Itumeleng, how would you define your experience of getting out of your comfort zone to experience other people's culture and to learn about how other people live? Immerse
yourself. That's it. Immerse yourself as much as possible. Go out there, learn, understand what makes those people those people. I mean, for example, you get to Czech Republic, you immerse yourself in that particular culture, you learn the language, you learn how the people live. You get to Turkey, it's the very same thing. And I think also within those countries themselves, within those various cities in those countries, are different splays of people and are different people from different backgrounds. So the diversity in itself is quite rich. Yeah.
Wow. You're so involved with young people, and I think one would say that it takes a lot to deal with young people, especially this current generation. You are coaching them on a daily basis. I mean, you have your own academy. They're coaching with Itumeleng Academy.
Oh, no, Coach Itu Academy. It's called the CIA.
CIA, yeah. Yes. What does it take for one to work with young people, especially young people that have different thoughts, different backgrounds? How do you bring them together and get the best out of them?
Three things. The first, I think, is the love for children. I think I'm always for the philosophy that in order for you to work with children, regardless of age, you always need to love them regardless.
Sure.
The second thing is resilience overall. So if you've got that resilient spirit, you're going to impart it inadvertently to any kid and to any children. And then the last one is, I think, just understanding the element of patience and that regard for wanting to take a kid step by step in learning a particular thing. I think my academy teaches very, very refined skills, and those are refined skills of oratory. And oratory, of course, encompasses debating, speech, poetry, presentation, and so on. And I think one of the key things that are quite important, especially for such a field, is understanding the fact that you are honing children not only in their thought, but in the way they do things. So for example, thinking in itself here is spread into three. So you've got the element of critical thinking, which is a big focus, but I think what we tend to forget sometimes is the element of creative thinking, because that's the one that's quite difficult to teach. So you don't teach kids creativity, no, you teach them to be able to become creative in things that they do. So that's also like one of the aspects that we actually truly focus on.
I like that, and I think it speaks so much about anyone being able to learn. Basically, it's not for certain type of kids from certain backgrounds. But how do parents play a role in harnessing that and supporting their own kids? According to your own experience, what have you seen as a big parental role and responsibility that parents should also be encouraged to play?
I think in any education setup, you know, the tripod is really important. So you've got the kid, then you've got the parent, and then you've got the deliverer of the education or the product, which is you know, the education sector, or the people, for example, in our instance would be the CIA. And I think the big thing there is the role that parents would play is to understand that we're not there necessarily to parent the children, but we're there to guide the children. So they are there as our accountability partners, as you know, as parents, because they are the people to whom we report about progress, about certain things, and so on. So if a kid, for example, wins, if a kid progresses from level A to level, you know, A plus, you know, they are the ones that actually see that type of progress, and then they hone and they harness it. I mean, if a kid, for example, is able to move from a district level to a provincial level, you know, and then from provincial level to national level and colors and so on, parents are able to track that progress. And it's and I think what's great about it is that even when we complain to parents about, you know, kids not delivering things on time and so on, then they're then able to talk to their children about you know, how serious this is, because I mean, it's a really good skill. Like I said, it carries not only just one subject, but I think a myriad of subjects. I mean, you're talking maths, you're talking history, you're talking accounting, and so on. And that's because of the type of skill it actually gives you, because it grounds you overall. Yes, it is not an assessment type of subject, but I think the most important thing about it is that it allows for your assessment to become a lot easier.
Sure. So it's more of your interpersonal development more than anything
100%.
else. That just forms the base of everything that you need to learn.
100%, yeah.
But more to it is that there's a career behind it. I mean, you wouldn't just be a coach if there was no career attached to it. And this speaks to a lot of our parents who might be watching now thinking that I don't see my kid doing public speaking and debate and going far in life as a career. What would you say to such people that don't believe that such things could be taken as a career?
Yeah, I think the misconceptions are a lot, but I think it just starts out with grounding the actual speaking, you know, and making that a career. And I think when someone is a professional speaker, they become a professional speaker given a particular aspect or area of specialization. So it could be education, it could be engineering, it could be mining, it could be accounting, it could be whatever. And speaking is, I think, the most important skill overall, because that goes in with thinking. Because I mean, sometimes if you are an expert at something and you are going to be a very boring presenter, and not just a boring presenter, but a presenter that's not truly enthralling and engaging, it becomes quite problematic. And what the skill then teaches you, it teaches you not only to become quite engaging, but also to become extemporaneous in how you present something, in how you
the level of delivery,
level of delivery as well. Because I mean, being an extemporaneous speaker is not for anybody, and that is why not all CEOs speak. That is why not all CFOs speak, and so on. And that's because sometimes the skill itself, you know, is what's needed for you to be able to be a whole lot more different than everybody else that's in the industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Looking at the most challenging things that are happening in our society, be it at school or outside of school, that are challenging our young people, what do you feel like this skill of learning how to speak can do? I mean, we're exposed to a lot of things. Social media is there. Someone can say, I have a speaking voice through me typing, but not everybody can express themselves when you speak to them than when they can type certain things. With this generation that we live in, with so many challenges that we are faced with, what do you think needs to happen for us to, truly advocate for one to be able to know how to speak right, express themselves, not just for interviews, for example, but just in general, how to communicate with people, because we lack that a lot.
Look, I think the big thing for me is the aspect of self-esteem.
Yes.
At some point, something needs to start somewhere. So, for example, for you to be able to find your voice because it matters,
Sure.
right? You had to start somewhere. You needed to challenge yourself, and you needed to get to a particular step to say that, as Usbong is saying, I am going to get out of a particular comfort zone, and I'm going to make mistakes. It's the very same thing I always say, and I'm going to make a particular example. The perception with first additional language. A lot of kids, for example, would say that, I'm failing Afrikaans because I'm only exposed to it at school. And I said, yeah, but what's the best way, to learn it? And they always say, perhaps reading. I say, no. Speak it.
Speak it,
Make mistakes, right? If you speak it and make mistakes, laugh at yourself once in a while, correct yourself, and so on. It's the
and
very
also
same.
allow other people to correct you.
There you go. It's the very same way you learn. It's the very same way you learned English. It's the very same way you're going to learn anything, because not everything starts even at 50%. Not everything starts at 10% or 20%. And that's the reason. So if you're going to want to develop yourself in any particular thing, and I always tell the children that, listen, yes, I've been coaching you for 3 months, I've been coaching you for 6 months, right? At some point, you're going to have to get into that stage and start speaking.
And make those mistakes, allow yourself.
There you go. And that's the point, because I think we're so afraid of two things in the world. And forget public speaking, forget death, right? Two things. And that's rejection and making mistakes.
Sure.
And I think once we're able to be comfortable in that discomfort, then we'll be okay.
Sure. You're talking so much about learning. How does one unlearn? Because we are taught so many things. We are exposed to so many things. How do we unlearn?
So whether you are unlearning a habit or a particular thing maybe like that you're used to, I think it's just to learn positively. Okay. And I think unlearning in itself is it's a negated word. So like you are unlearning something. So for example, you could be unlearning smoking and so on. But I think there's something positive that you should be learning that sort of rubs out everything else that you are trying to unlearn inadvertently.
How do we know what we are learning is right? Because we're exposed to so many things.
Nothing's right. Nothing's right.
Well, we speak about quality education.
Yeah.
And quality education could be pertaining to certain resources that are being created. How do you know what's quality? Even you as a debate coach or public speaking coach, how does one say what I'm getting out of CIA is quality?
Two things. I think, first of all, it's the results regarding the delivery. That's very, very important.
So you judge
so you can have
based
two,
on the results.
True. Because I think you can have two. So you've got two things. The first is you can have two history teachers, at very different schools in very different settings and so on, and one who is teaching in a particular way, and another one who's teaching in a completely different way. Same curriculum and so on. And why is it that you've got two kids of the same IQ who are not getting the very same results? And I think the issue then is with the delivery, and I think also with the assessment and the delivery in that regard, because sometimes we're not honest with ourselves in terms of how we truly even do a self-assessment in terms of, maybe here I messed up a bit, and that's not so cool. So I think a lot of the time we don't focus much on, that self-awareness and that self-assessment, just in terms of trying as much as possible to hone quality. Like I said, nothing's right. There's nothing that's right, there's nothing that's wrong. But I think how you then make quality just depends on how much you refine it. That those 10,000 hours are very, very important. If you're going to be spending 10,000 hours on teaching debating and on learning debating, on learning elocution, on learning argumentation and so on, you will perfect the skill. You're not going to be a puppet necessarily, but you will perfect the skill. And that's exactly what's important, because I think the importance of that more than anything lies so much with how much you've done in order to improve yourself. Does it make sense? So because if you've improved and you're better than you were yesterday, then you're in a better state today. You're in a better state today.
Absolutely.
And I always say to my learners, you're as good as your last speech. Yes, you are an African champion. Yes, you are the national champion for, in public speaking and in debating. That was yesterday. We're focusing on something else now. We're focusing on something new, because the people with whom you competed, the people with whom who you were against at that particular competition, are now gunning for you and are gunning for whatever it is that you've achieved, because they saw you gave them the particular blueprint. Don't be predictable. Improve on the very skill, regardless of how good you are.
Learn from what you've done. Be it you've done it right, learn from it, and then improve from it.
There you go.
Talking about improvement, when you were at Bupilo Impilo School, you improved the results from like 40% to like 90%. And all I saw there was you had so much passion for what you were doing, you were focused on what you wanted to do, but also you contributed so much and immensely on the sports part of the school to improve be it the tennis court or whatever that needed to be done. What role does sport play in the academia field?
Look, I think you can't talk about sport on its own. I always say, in any proper academic setup, if you want a well-rounded learner, and that's why a lot of the time I value the kids who average around your 60s and 70s. Yeah. Not that the ones that are getting 90s and 100s are not so much valued, but a lot of the time, that well-roundedness comes from these kids, right? I always talk about the star point of 5, right?
Yes.
Which is called class.
Yes.
And that's culturals, leadership, academic, sport, and service. If you've got a learner in any particular school and in any particular setup who's able to deliver on these 5 things simultaneously, then you've achieved your goal as a school. Then you've achieved your goal as a headmaster, as an educator, regardless. If you're gonna have a child who's doing very well and who's well-rounded in all these 5 things, right? Of course, one of them or 2 of them may lack here and there, but the fact that they're actually doing it, and not all kids are going to be in the first team of hockey or the first team for netball or whatnot, right? And not all kids in their leadership are going to be head boy, but the fact that that particular child is an RCL member, or they're doing something leadership related, perhaps at church, and they are maybe like a Sunday school, teacher, a teacher or whatever. The fact of the matter is that they are well-rounding themselves with class. Culturals, I'm going to make an example, debating or dance, right? Or maybe you're doing marimbas, leadership, I just spoke about it. Academics, how academically well you are, and it's fine. It's funny how it's right here in the middle, and the reason it's right here in the middle is that these 4 here carry this very thing here. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then you've got the sport. Sport is very, very important because it kind of makes you forget everything, because when you are on the field or in a tennis court and you are exercising or you're part of a gym, you, for that particular moment, are engaged in something so important. And that is the development of self and the improvement of one's health, regardless. And that's why some schools make sports compulsory. And parents would complain. Parents complain, they go, oh, but I mean, why do we need to buy this? And why do we need to get our kids involved in that? And what they don't understand, and that's why the life orientation, physical education component is so important. That's why even the kids that do dramatic arts have got movement, which is, again, another physical component. It's very, very important, right? And lastly, service. You need to be of service regardless. You need to be of service at doing something. Again, like I spoke of, I just spoke of something as simple as a Sunday school.
Outside
I mean, whether you're volunteering at school and you guys have got like an action day, you need to be somebody that's going to give off service at some point, regardless. If you have got these 5 things, then you're gone.
You're covered. Yeah. Tell you what, Sport, for those who are watching our channel and don't know, we do have a physical education show called Active for Life that you can catch on this channel or catch it on our YouTube channel. It is meant for everybody, and I think that's a misconception that we also have, that physical education is just for kids, for certain people. Anyone can do it. We started broadcasting this show in December 2021, and we had a lot of old people saying, we want to learn more, we want to exercise more, because it's beyond just one learning movement and steps. It has got health benefits to one. But now I want to take you from someone who's worked with kids so much and also worked with teachers, the community, because schools belong to communities. What is the role that the communities should be playing that they are not playing at the moment in supporting the schools, be it safety, be it any other role that you think is very important?
a lot of the time schools, communities are not aware that they are the first pillars of a school.
Yeah.
You see a school damaged, you see a school vandalized, you see a school dingy, untaken care of, and so on.
Sure.
It's the community to blame. And that's why the role of school governing bodies is so pertinent in any particular school setup. So the role that communities have, I mean, have you sometimes seen, you know, I'm driving across, I think any suburb, you'll notice that you've got these school boards. I'm going to make an example with Work School Linden, right? And you've got, you know, these shops advertising,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
you know, on their rugby field.
Yes.
And those are shops in and around
yes.
Randburg, in and
Yes.
around Linden. And that's because they have taken themselves and they've given themselves that particular duty to take care of that school as well as the schooling community. So I think until such time we understand that public schools by nature belong to the community, and that's why sometimes, you know that, well, I mean, it's if you're going to want to use a particular school's hall and you want to hire it at a fee and so on, that is you trying to raise funds for the school and contributing
Yeah.
to some extent. So that's the role of it all. So if a school, for example, has got a fundraiser, if a school, for example, has got an action day where they are trying to revamp and they're trying to renovate the school in a particular fashion, and you've got a hardware store down the road that's not supporting that, then you've got a problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
With us understanding that communities are custodians of schools, where did we go wrong with starting to blame each other? Because it's vice versa. The school blames the community blames the school blames the government blames everybody else. This blame game, when it comes to us fixing what should be done right, you know, in our schools and is not being done right, be it during the COVID-19 pandemic where a lot of our schools were vandalized and everybody was like, no, people are hungry. People are like, no, we need to be protecting schools, but we're not protecting our schools. Why aren't we working together collaboratively?
It's a simple word, the third pillar in our democracy, called accountability. Accountability, more than anything.
Yeah.
If we can learn the culture of accountability, then we'll get somewhere. I think at this stage, the big problem that we have is that lack of accountability. Regardless, that lack of accountability, and that's why I'm able to easily point a finger at you and say, but I mean, you did not deliver that.
Do what
you know,
you're
but
supposed
yeah,
to
but
do.
yeah, you see, and I think until such time that we learn that accountability again is a process, and it's a process of. You spoke about unlearning earlier on. So we can't unlearn something. We need to learn accountability in order to inadvertently unlearn what? Passing the buck. Yes, because you can't unlearn passing the buck.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff now that are happening currently with CIA is you're taking your kids to the US.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Sure. Okay. So I mean, so the kids are going to the National Speech and Debate Championships in the US in Kentucky. They'll take place between the 9th and the 17th of June. Public speaking, debating, poetry, dramatic, prose, and so on. And I think we're so excited because, and the preparations are underway. It's quite hectic. It's actually even messing up with, I think, some of our internal health, but we get in there
in a very good way.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, we just want the kids to do well. We want the kids to win.
Yes.
We want the kids to. I think we want to be safe, and I think more than anything we want to have fun. We want the kids to immerse themselves as much as possible in the activities there. We're the only organization in the country that's invited. I think every year only one organization can take a bunch or a group of children to that, and I think. And this year, that's us, and we're very privileged to be a part of that.
It can be an easy journey, and I believe so much because you are representing not just the schools and the parents and everybody, but South Africa as a whole.
Yeah.
And what kind of support would you really, really need and urge people at home to support you guys with?
I think more than anything, look, so there's about a couple of things. So now, I think one, resources. Two, it's obviously the chat of money and donations.
When you say resources, what do you mean? Break it down.
So there are some kids that are part of the CIA who are non-fee paying. Okay. And so they would need resources like iPads and tablets and laptops and so on. So that's a very, very important thing because I think there's this misconception that we work with kids from private schools, and that's just strong. You know, we do have we take any kid. You know, we don't leave any children behind. And there's a very important non-profit organization, you know, that's a part of us, which is the Pan-African Schools Debating Council. I'm sure you've heard of it, and
yes.
that runs the Cartoon Debating League, and they do the Jersey Summer Holiday Open. They do the Pan-African Schools Debating Championships and so on, and they're
doing a lot.
Yeah, they do a lot, and they do marvelous work. You know, they do marvelous work, especially, you know, where children, you know, from underprivileged backgrounds are actually truly concerned. So those types of resources are what's needed. Yeah, so yes, I think just as much support as possible would actually appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
And I believe you also serve as one of the directors in the organization.
Yeah, I do. Yes. I'm currently the senior vice president. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you juggle all of these things? How do you plan your time and prioritize?
There's no planning. That's the thing. I think if you live by planning, sometimes you're going to disappoint yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
But
it's
we're always
just
taught to plan.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you plan to
Yes.
fail, you fail to plan, and so on. Yeah, and I think planning is good. Planning is great, but I think when you're running a non-profit organization, and when you're part of when you're part of two non-profit organizations, and you're running a business on the side, and you're doing, you know, teaching gigs here and there, flexibility is the order of the day. I mean, right now I can just get a call to say that, listen, please, could you come in and stand in for teacher so and so, for the next week, and I've already planned my month. You know, what does that mean? So yeah, I mean, whilst it's good, it's always beautiful to become flexible. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, you've got your June planned already, going to Kentucky. I mean, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
But anyway, I can't let you go on this show without talking about education and the importance of education, because it's the center of everything. How do you define education and what education is, according to you?
Look, I think education is the greatest step to changing one's life more than anything.
Yeah.
And I think I spoke about learning earlier on, and we are lifelong learners. If you have got, and this is in teaching or in any field, if you've got staff that are lifelong learners, then you've got the right people. Because education is not, there's no destination to it.
Sure.
You know, there's no, I've now got this certificate, and I've now got this degree, and I've now got this. You know, it's a learning, it's a learning thing. It's a learning progress. And I think one of the big things for me, especially with going to Kentucky, I'm going to be learning a lot from a lot of other coaches. You know, I mean, a lot of people, you know, would be like, but Coach Ij, I mean, what haven't you achieved? You know, you've won this, and you've won that, and you've achieved this, and there's a constant drive to learn. I mean, I've got 3 of my favorite speech and debate coaches in the world,
sure.
To whom I look up, and I'll be meeting them there, and I'm going to be engaged in them. So that's always the point of education, is just that.
You never get to a point where you say you know it all.
You know it all.
Yeah.
No, you can, yeah. And I think one of the greatest principles I know, is a woman who, even today in her retirement, continues to learn. And I think that, for me, is what's more important.
Having so much to do, you could be focused on just basketball, because you also love basketball, or just debate as just debate, but you're all rounded. You're in academics, you're in sports, you're in all these different things that you do. Why education? You could be I'm a piano musician, not that there's something wrong about it, but you could be doing other things, entertainment-wise, or maybe just in arts or anything. But everything that you do is around education. Why? Why is education so important to you?
Funny you should say that. I could actually be doing piano. I could actually be doing basketball. I could actually, be doing perhaps acting, right?
Yes.
But that with education.
Yes.
So I think, it plays a role in just about everything. Exactly. And I think, and that's the point of it all. The problem is that a lot of the time there's this romanticization of academia, which is usually wrongly placed as education, and I think, the ex-CEO of COO of SABC spoke about it quite well just the other day, in that, there's a big distinction between that and and education, because I mean, that in its, I mean, education is everywhere.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
there are things that we learn every day. Sometimes whether it's something short for 6 weeks or you know, or for 6 months and so on. The fact of the matter is that you're going to be getting something out of it. I mean, you look at, I think it's you know, DJ Maporisa and Cubs of the Small.
Yes.
How those people have refined their craft as individuals and as artists. They did that through learning, and they had to teach themselves certain things. And the beauty about it is that sometimes they've got managers, sometimes they manage themselves.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that they are learning something in so doing. So that's the point of it all. So regardless of where you find yourself, there's that particular grounding where education will definitely be the middle ground.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well said. That's what TED is all about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing the time with us and the knowledge and also your experiences.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, as you've all heard from Itumeleng, you never stop learning. And if you stop learning, it means you stop living, because learning is a journey. And right here on TED, we love having conversations that are inspiring and with great people that are doing big, which really is a testament that you can be anything that you want to be in life. You can never be stopped. If you want to be stopped, it means you are your own stumbling block. So in us learning and in our journey of learning, let's make sure that we rise up with somebody. Let's contribute towards such organizations that are doing so great in our communities. And also as parents, as the community, let's be custodians of our own schools and protect what we own. And the last thing is accountability. In everything that you do, make sure that you're accountable. Up until next time on TED, we say goodbye.